Happy Sunday. It's time for our April Spine of the Month book chat. Our April book was Happy Land by Dolen Perkins Valdez, who is going to join us today. If you haven't read this book, there will be no spoilers, don't worry. Hello there, Jackie. It's going to be a great conversation. Pin my comment. If you don't have a copy of the book, you can support Diverse Spines by purchasing it through Bookshop. And I pinned the link there. I think Dolen is here. Happy Sunday, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about Happy Land today, and Dolen is going to join us. This is our April Spine. Hold on a second. Come on, Instagram. Let's see. Dolen, I sent you a request back. For some reason, it wouldn't let me accept yours. I think we're good. Can you guys hear me okay? I don't know what's going on. It won't let me accept her request. Hold on a second. Dolen, it says you're unable to join. Oh. There we go.
Okay, that works.
It works.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's good to see
It's good
you.
to see you too.
So, we have a new book out.
I know, right? It feels like just yesterday we chatted.
You know what? I was looking back in my notes. It was 2 years ago.
I know.
It was 2 years ago. So time is flying by for sure.
Yes, it is. For
So
sure.
how are you feeling? This gorgeous book, Happy Land.
I'm feeling really good. I always feel like with my books, they kind of have a slow roll to them.
Uh-huh.
Because I always say like my best media is word of mouth and my readers. So I feel like I never know what's going to happen. And so far it feels good. It feels like my slow roll has begun.
Yes. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. So I'm going to do a quick intro. You've been
Okay.
here before, so welcome back. And for our new people in the audience, I'm just going to have you do a brief, tell people a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
Okay.
So thank you guys for joining on Sunday. We normally talk on Saturdays, but thank you for joining this, our April Spine of the Month. And I'm so happy to welcome back Dolen Perkins Valdez. If you can see here, this is my stack of all of Dolen's lovely, wonderful books. If you have not read them, I suggest you go back to her backlist. I am Jamise Harper. I'm the founder of Diverse Spines, also over on Spines Designs. And so we are here to talk to Dolen, New York Times bestselling author. Take My Hand was the 2023 NAACP. It won the NAACP award for outstanding literary work of fiction. Is it Bakla Award? You won that in 2023
I,
with
I,
Fran?
I think, I'm not sure if they pronounce the acronym.
This is BCALA
Uh-huh.
Award for Fiction.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
finalist for Good Reads Choice Award. And then the audiobook version, which I love for Take My Hand, was the best of 2022 by Audible. So I'm sure this one will be as well because this audiobook is excellent. It is so good.
That's what I'm hearing. I haven't heard it yet.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, it's
No.
really good.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
good. I said I was supposed to go on a road trip this weekend, but somebody rear-ended me.
Oh my goodness.
So I didn't go on my road trip, and that was when I had planned to listen to the
Oh
audiobook.
yeah, you definitely should listen to it. It's really good. So the floor is yours, your brief intro, and then we'll dive right in.
Okay. So I'm Dolen Perkins Valdez, and this is my fourth novel, Happy Land. And I am originally from Memphis. I now live in Washington, D.C., and I'm excited to be here today.
So I was so bummed that I couldn't make it to your talk at Politics and Prose.
I know it's the middle of the week. It's so hard. I can't tell you how many people I miss who come to DC because it's on a Tuesday night. So I
It
get it.
was, I was so bummed out, but I'm sure I'll catch you. And here's the funny thing. So for both, I think for both of your book releases, Take My Hand and Happy Land, I wasn't able to make it, but we actually met in person. I think 20, I don't know, was it 2016 when you
Yes,
interviewed y'all Jesse for Homegoing? That's how long
that's
ago it feels.
right.
Yes.
And I read, that speaking of slow rolls, that's another one of those books that had a slow roll that then like elevated into the
Oh,
best of all
yeah.
time space. But like I remember, it wasn't like a super packed event, but I just
Mm-mm.
remember loving that book so much and feeling like she had accomplished something
Yes.
remarkable with it. I had never read anything like it. And she was so sweet, so humble. And then that book just continued to go, 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 go. And now to me, it's in the like best of all
Yeah.
time
Yes.
category.
I would agree. It's one of my favorites. But so are like let's go back to Winch is one of my favorites as well.
Thank you. That was my first baby.
Oh goodness. So tell me, from Winch to now with Happy Land, how have you grown as an author, as an artist?
Well, Lynch was published 15 years
Hmm.
ago. And so I haven't just grown as an artist, I've grown as a woman,
Hmm.
like I'm now, what they call a middle-aged person and a middle-aged writer. Even though I don't feel like it, I know that I
Right.
am. And so I think I'm at that stage, both in my life and in my career, where I'm not trying to make anyone else happy but myself,
Hmm.
where I know who I am as an artist. I know what I want to say. Um, I know what I can fight for with my publisher and what to let go.
Okay.
So I'm not as sort of fearful in that way. Um, and I think that my work sort of reflects that. Like I'm not, every now and then I'll complain about the fact that I've never gotten a New York Times book review. Like I'll complain about it, but it honestly doesn't mean that much to
Hmm.
me. I'm more concerned with that nowadays, like having readers, connecting with my readers. I answer every email that everybody sends me
Oh, that's,
because that's to me why I write is for
hmm,
them. And so though, they are my toughest critics anyway. All you have to do is go on Goodreads and you'll see. And so I feel like I'm in a conversation with readers directly. And I think that has to do with my maturity. I don't have any jealousy of any other writer.
hmm,
I think when you're young and you're insecure about the industry, you can have some envy happen, which is very
hmm.
natural. But I'm at that stage now where I want to uplift other
And
writers and I
that
want
you
to
do. That
share
you
my
definitely do.
platform,
Yeah.
especially debut novelists and younger
Hmm.
writers. But I just like to share my platform now with, all of the writing community. And also just, I understand there's room for all of us. And I think that has to do with my maturity as a writer. I'm not in competition with anybody ever.
Yeah. That's so refreshing to hear. But I
Mhm.
can say you definitely uplift. I find a lot of books on your account because you're
Really?
always yeah. Because even though I read a lot, I like to see your thoughts about it. But I see stuff on your account when you're like
Yeah.
uplifting people. So for
I
sure,
want
I do.
to share more. I
Mhm.
really do want to share more. And that's been my goal this year, and I need to do
Yeah.
more.
So it's interesting. Let's talk about Happy Land. I want to know. So it's inspired by real life self governing Black community in the Appalachian Mountains, right? And so, what first drew you to this piece of history? Because a lot of people don't know about it. I know my mother says, "Well, what are you doing today?" And I told her I was interviewing you, and she says, "Well, what's the book about?" And I told her, and she's 77 from
Oh,
Tennessee, and she's like, "I don't know about that." And I said, "Well, it's true, Mom." She goes, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm sure. Like it's true." North Carolina. She said, "Wow, that wasn't in our history books, right?"
I didn't
Now, take my
know
hand.
you had roots in Tennessee.
We talked about this. My family is from
Oh,
Murfreesboro
we did talk about that. Yes, because my niece went to college in Murfreesboro, and
at MTSU.
yes, we
Yes.
did. Okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I forgot.
That's okay. And
Yeah.
so, and when I talked to her about taking my hand, now she recalled that story.
Yeah.
Like she knew about that, but she did not know about the kingdom. So can you talk a little about what drew you to tell this story?
Well, it's such a remarkable story.
It
I
is.
mean, these people, in my mind, they walked up that hill in search of a better life. They were ambitious, they were industrious,
Mm-hmm.
they were entrepreneurial, they were, I think, audacious in their dream of naming themselves royalty.
Yes.
Um, and I think it was a successful communal living experiment. And so, in my mind, it was a story that people just needed to hear about. Now, I think of it differently than Take My Hand. I think Take My Hand was something that was deliberately swept under the rug. Like it
Correct.
was a story that there's no reason it shouldn't be taught in med schools because it was such a big deal and it was all over the national
Mm-hmm.
news and the ramifications of that case are still in play in the medical community today. So to me, there's no other explanation other than people didn't want to talk about it because it was an ugly moment, but it was one that was necessary. And so I think that story was intentionally swept under the rug. This story is a little bit different. I think it was a small community in a small pocket of Western North Carolina. And even the kingdom itself at its height was only like 200 to 400 people. There were much bigger Black intentional
Mm-hmm.
communities that also weren't known about. So I can't say that this was intentionally swept under the rug, but I can say that it's one of those things that we need. Sometimes those tiny little pockets of history actually matter, and it's one we need to shine a light on so that we can know like something about this period other than uh lynch mobs
Mm-hmm.
and sharecropping.
Yes. It's like so, because it's so not widely known, right? But how did you go about the research? Like, what did you do to find out, more about the kingdom and the people that live there?
So I worked with locals. When I first discovered this, it was during the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic in the summer of 2021. And I reached out. I kept seeing this name pop up over and over online. Ronnie Pepper. He was a librarian at Henderson County Library, and he was also an oral storyteller. He's a Black Appalachian oral storyteller. And I'd found audio of him just sharing the story within the community. So I reached out to him. He was very nice. He wrote me right back. And we talked and we emailed and we texted for the next year because, we were still in COVID. And it wasn't
Yeah.
safe to travel.
Mm-hmm.
So for a year, Ronnie and I exchanged resources. I found everything I could online. But from the very beginning, it was a sort of connection that we had that we were both interested in this history. So a year later, in summer of 2022, when it was finally safe to travel, I said, I'm coming to Hendersonville. And he says, well, I want you to meet my friend, Suzanne Hale. And Suzanne and I got together once I got down there. She was on the Black History Research Committee, as well as Ronnie. Ronnie's the
Mm-hmm.
chair of the Henderson County Black History Research Committee, and she was like willing to do the legwork, driving it. I couldn't stay for longer than a few days, but Suzanne was willing to drive down to Spartanburg, etc. And all of us were just, it was really, honestly, Jamise, it was like a once in a lifetime kind of connection between the three of us. Like we would sit around at the dinner table just talking and talking it through. And Ronnie was like the voice of wisdom. Every time we go down a rabbit hole, Ronnie would kind of put us back on track. And then anytime, even now, like when I can't remember a certain fact, Suzanne's mind is just so sharp and she remembers every little detail. And so, and then I brought my ability to kind of put the puzzle pieces together to really connect and create a story about what happened.
Right. It's such a fascinating story. I often think about like the determination and the sheer will to pack up and leave and create your own community after emancipation, right?
Yeah, and I mean, they left quickly. Like this was
Yes.
the thing that we didn't know until we went into those archives. They literally, I call it a fire sale. That's what we would call it down south. Like they sold everything in a fire sale. They They sold a hog that was worth $3 for $1. They sold their tools. They sold their crops, whatever was in the ground, they sold. And they were gone,
Hmm.
and that led us to believe they were fleeing for their lives. This
Yes.
wasn't just a sort of, let's go up the mountain. This was a, if we don't get out of here, they're going to kill us moment. And so they left out of desperation. And but when they got there, they were so imaginative about who they wanted to be in this place where they felt they could live unmolested right up on this mountain. And so I just think they were just remarkable.
I love how you, and this is a no spoiler conversation, so don't worry if you haven't finished the book. And if you're coming in new, we're talking about Happy Land. I love how you set the story up, the stage with the dual timelines. I love a dual timeline story, right? So, can you tell us a little bit about the setup of the structure of the story? And we didn't really give an overview, but just something that won't give it away for everyone.
Well, sure, because I think I feel like every historical novelist brings something to the story. There has to be a driving question that
Hmm.
the novelist is asking. I'm not just giving y'all the bare facts.
Hmm.
I'm not just entertaining. I'm actually choosing this history for a particular reason. And so the question I had when I was reading about this, and also just visiting the people in Hendersonville and talking about it to them, was, why does this history matter? Why do we need to know about the kingdom? And in order to explore that question, I knew I had to have a contemporary storyline, because I was asking a contemporary question. Why does it matter now? You know? And sometimes you can figure that question out without a contemporary storyline. But I thought, because this was such a little pocket of history, we needed that. And so, the historical part, the historical timeline is very, very close to what actually
Hmm.
happened. Actually, after she read an early draft, Suzanne said, "You really stuck close to the research." And that was more than I thought. I had made up more than I had. So the historical timeline is very close to what actually happened. The contemporary storyline is completely made up.
Hmm. And let's talk about the contemporary storyline, because I think I like that you said, um, you're asking a question. Why does this matter? And so when you said that just now, it kind of like brings everything together for me, especially when you're talking about land and legacy, and
Mhm.
how we are in a time when we're discovering, or we're finding more about people, especially black families who've had land and have lost land due to heirs property, due to gentrification. So let's talk a little bit about that, because we meet this character Nikki, who I love, and she's she's estranged from her grandmother, and her grandmother calls her back to North Carolina. And this is when she discovers that there was a kingdom. She did not know she was an heir of this kingdom, or that she was she had ancestors. So can you talk a little about land and legacy, and why that is so important, and how it was taken from a lot of us?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if your family does a family. Does your family do a family reunion down in Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it's very
Yeah.
common,
Yes.
right? Like, especially us Southerners, we love a good family reunion. So my family does one every 2 years, because it's
Hmm.
so many of us. It would be hard for us to do it every year, and we
Hmm.
have people that come from all over. So my cousin Rhonda, who lives in Murfreesboro, shout out to Rhonda. Um, she plans
Okay.
it, and she's brilliant at it. Like, she gets the t-shirts done, everything. And we rent a park in Shelby County, outside of Memphis. And um, we barbecue. They have, at this park that, where we rent, we set up an arts and crafts
Hmm.
table. They have like a one of those hayride tractors that people could go on. We take a big picture out in the field, the family picture. The kids play, different ball games,
Hmm.
and then at the end of the day, we all get in our cars, and it's sad. We hate to leave because we have such a good time. I'm always like the last person in the parking lot talking to somebody, and we leave, and we go back to our place where we live. And the thing that struck me the last family reunion was that we are trying to recreate something. We're trying to create what it was like when we had a home place, when we had land.
Mm-hmm.
when our people had land. Like when we do that family reunion and we rent that park, that is we don't even realize it really because a lot of our young people don't know this. But we used to have we used to have land, particularly us Southerners,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of that land is gone. And I'm not talking about a few acres. I'm talking about millions and millions of
Yeah.
acres that Black folks lost. And I think, I mentioned earlier about how when we think of the Reconstruction period, or post Reconstruction rather, we are often thinking about, and this is something that has been, if you read, I don't know, going back to Alice Walker's A Third Life of Grange Copeland and other novels that typify that period, we're often thinking about sharecropping. We're
Mm-hmm.
often thinking about mob violence. But one thing that we don't talk enough about is Black folks clamoring to buy land. We wanted it bad. We knew that land ownership was the surest path to citizenship. It was the surest way you could provide for your family. It was the way you could, grow crops and feed your children. And also just wealth. We understood
Yes.
what land wealth meant. And so um i going back to like the questions I was asking, I think every good historical novelist has to bring something to the history that is uniquely their thoughts and perspectives. So for me it was like the question of why did this story matter, and then once I started delving into that question, I started thinking about like what did land mean to us?
Yeah.
Like, what did it mean to us? And not just in terms of the wealth. Now, we know like Black folks are disproportionately impoverished in this country, largely due to the loss of our land,
Mm-hmm.
the loss of property ownership. And to this day, even during the predatory lending crisis of the early 2000s, we lost wealth. That, we always are on the losing end of this. But even beyond that, though, I felt like we lost that gathering place.
Mm-hmm.
We lost our connection to nature. Our, we go to national parks, and I'm speaking generally, and we don't feel welcome a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times. Now, I know in the South, y'all, I know people gonna send me messages. We have a big RV culture. We got, a lot of
Yes.
our people fish. My daddy fished all the time. He used to take my brothers, they hated it, but my daddy would make them go fishing on the weekends. So I'm not saying that we don't still, get outdoors. I'm talking about generally when the Great Migration happened in the 20th century, as we left behind the South because it was violent for very good reasons.
Yes.
A lot of us lost our connection to nature, and I often say like my grandfather, he knew bird songs. He would like if there was a bird outside the window, he would say, "Ooh, that robin is making a lot of racket today. You need to get on from my window." He
Mm-hmm.
knew what the bird was just from the sounds it was making out the window, and he would say something about it in a very casual way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to suggest that land had so much metaphorical and literal meaning for Black folks in this country historically. And that was part of why this story was important.
Um, I thought about so Nikki and her grandmother. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
very this intergenerational journey, and it's very emotionally rich. It's
Mm-hmm.
I just for me it resonated with me because I kept thinking how she was kept away because they had her mother and the grandmother had a falling out, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't this connection, but there was this longing once she went back to visit her grandmother. And she goes back, you guys, something's happening in regards to the land, and that's all we're going to say about that. And Nikki goes back, and I just want to know what role does memory play, or even silence, in
Mm.
families as they pass down their history?
Yeah. Yeah. When at the beginning of the book, when Nikki's grandmother calls her, I'm gonna say calls her home,
Mhm.
but calls her back to North Carolina and says it's urgent. Nikki goes because she wants to know what's going on with the family. Her mother won't talk to her
Mhm.
about why her mother and grandmother don't speak anymore. They're they're silent about so much. And she's never been to North Carolina. Like when her
Okay.
mother left, her mother never looked back. And I know this to be like, as a person that left the South, I am, and you are, right? You left. Well, I
I ne-
guess somebody might say,
I never lived. I've never lived. I was born there, but I was a military brat, so I never really lived there. I went to college,
oh,
so I always went back holidays. I still now. So it's
yes,
this because that's where you're from. That's where your family is. So
yes,
you want to go back. You want
uh-huh,
the connection. Yeah.
yes. So
Because I know.
you weren't raised there. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit different.
And then
Yeah. Well,
I will tell you this Nikki story. When I was reading it, I kind of felt like, wow, it resonated with me because growing up all over, you always for me,
mhm.
always having to like find your place where you fit in when you went back because you did not grow up there, right? You
Mm,
wanted to have that belonging and that
mhm,
connection. So I think when
mhm,
I was reading this, I was thinking about those things
mhm.
and how
That
Nikki, I think
duality.
she, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. And that's an interesting space to be in, isn't it? Because you have this kinship with the place, but you also don't have the same memories as the people who grew up there.
Correct.
Mm, yeah.
Correct. So I'm thinking about Nikki wanting to know what went on, but then she also was very eager to have the connection and
Mm-hmm.
learn. Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
can you tell me a little bit like I said, how does it the role in families as they pass down their history, what role does memory
Mm-hmm.
play? Because everyone remembers things differently, especially when there's a falling out.
So I'm more like Laurel, right? Nikki's mother. And you're
Mm-hmm.
more like Nikki. So Laurel is raised there. I mean, I'm gonna start with that with your question. I'm gonna start with Laurel
Mm-hmm.
because Laurel leaves, and a lot of us who left, and I won't say this happened with me per se, but I know a lot of my friends, particularly those who were from like small
Mm-hmm.
towns. So whether it be from like Murfreesboro in Tennessee, or whether it be from somewhere in Mississippi. I had a lot of friends from Olive Branch,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And they leave and they say, I'm never coming back to this place, you know. Or like when I would leave, when I would meet other people from Memphis, I always maintained a very strong connection to Memphis because my whole family was there, and I didn't leave and think I wasn't coming back. It just didn't work that way. But I would meet people and they would say, what do you like about Memphis? I mean, it was a Memphian. People would come
Yeah.
there like, what do you like about it? Why do you love it so much? And I would say, everything, everything.
Yes.
It's my home, And so I think for Laurel, she's one of those that is like, I'm never going back to North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina. I'm moving to DC. I'm going to make a new life, and that's it. I don't care nothing about no land. I don't care nothing about all of this stuff my mama's
Yes.
talking about. Nikki is caught in the middle
Mm-hmm.
generationally between her mother and her grandmother. Nikki doesn't have the same emotional, you know, the same emotional attachment to the things that her mother and grandmother are warring over. Like she doesn't feel one way or the other. She's more of a neutral party, and she ends up having to really think about what it means to be a bridge builder in a family,
Yes.
um, and I think that when, families have silences, which so many do, a person will emerge, and it's a burden, but it is what it is, will emerge as a bridge builder or as a kind of Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
I said that about my sister at her funeral. I was like, Gina was Switzerland in this family. What we gonna do now? Because she
Okay.
was the neutral person that everybody could go
Mm-hmm.
to, and we could resolve our disputes. But that had to have been a burden for her to always be hearing everybody's point of view and having to, so this is where Nikki finds herself. And I think about estrangements. I don't really understand estrangement because I have a family that's sort of the opposite of that. We all in each other's
Yes.
business all the time.
That would be my family. Correct. We're all the time.
Like too much.
All the time.
I'm like, can we please be estranged?
I don't we're
Because
not estranged at all. I think I have like almost 30 first cousins.
yeah.
None of us are estranged. We're all in a family chat that goes off any time of the day, any time of the night. So it's yeah, we're in there
Yeah.
literally.
And our group chat with my cousins is so big. Some of the numbers I don't recognize. I don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, who is that? They're not in my contacts. So, you know, I've been thinking about like what does estrangement mean and trying to figure it out. Well, I did this interview with Psychology Today, the magazine
Mm-hmm.
organization, and they said to me, they were asking me about estrangement, and they gave me like a textbook definition of it, which I found so interesting. They said that studies show that estrangement is more often due to differing values than it is to anything else. So basically, you could, it says like differing values are even more divisive than someone transgressing like a societal norm, which read to me like if someone molested somebody in the family, that's less likely to cause estrangement than differing values,
Yeah.
which I thought of. One, I thought of like this political environment where families are like not talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought about Laurel and Mother Rita, Nikki's mother and grandmother. I thought about they're not talking because their values differ in terms of what the South means, what the land means, what their people mean, what their history mean. And so when Psychology Today said that to me, I thought this actually could have happened. That they
Mm-hmm.
actually were estranged because of this thing. I had not known that.
And Laurel did not believe in about the kingdom. She didn't believe the story.
She didn't believe it. You know, there's people, I've met people in Henderson County who say they know that that community was there, but how do we know they call themselves royalty? How do we know that? You know, they said that to me when I first went down there. I think they might be more convinced now that we've done more research. But yeah.
Yes. And can we talk? There's a piece of the interesting fact in the book. You talk about someone wrote about the kingdom.
Yes. So there was this pamphlet that was published in 1957 by a court stenographer, Sadie Patton. And Sadie said that they were from Mississippi. She said a couple of things that I just didn't believe. And
Mm-hmm.
this was one of the reasons why I started to delve into the archives with Suzanne and Ronnie. She said they were from Mississippi. And I thought, well, it's not like they were just looking for loved ones. We know that freed people walked far
Yes.
distances looking for loved ones after they were freed. But this is not what they were doing. They were looking for a place to create a community. So I thought, weren't there some places they could have stopped between Mississippi and North Carolina mountains? That was one thing that struck me as unbelievable. And then the second thing she said was that, and this I just thought, come on now, Sadie. She said that William Montgomery, who was the first king, was a mulatto man from Mississippi who had been owned by a white enslaver who was the son of this white enslaver. And he, upon his 18th birthday, the white enslaver had given him slaves and he became a wealthy slave owner. And I thought, like black enslavers, like we didn't even know they existed until Edward P. Jones told us, you know. And it was so rare that I thought to myself, this sounds like some kind of fantasy. So it turned out that my suspicions were correct
Mm-hmm.
because once we got into the archives, we found all of the original kingdom folk right down there in Spartanburg County, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on, there was a Montgomery plantation there. And I actually did the research in the Mississippi archives to make sure I wasn't missing anything. But then they appeared right there in South Carolina. Luella Bobo, who was the first queen, was from the Bobo plantation. The Bobo name in Spartanburg is still a big name there. You see it when you go in downtown, you see it on buildings, you know. This is the South. This is South. And the Montgomery plantation was run by women who
Mm-hmm.
were enslavers. So none of that part was true. Now, other parts of Sadie's pamphlet are true, and she did talk to descendants, but I think she embellished. That's what
Yeah.
I think. She embellished. But what was so fascinating to me is that that pamphlet stood as the gospel truth for over 60 years.
Yeah.
Nobody
No.
did nobody read this and say, let me just take a little peek in the
Mm-hmm.
library. Like it wasn't hard to find them, really. And I thought to myself, local journalists were publishing about this. And I saw that there was a review in the New York Times Book Review just in October, this wonderful book that I bought and read called Black Utopians by scholar Aaron Robertson. And when the
Mhm.
reviewer reviewed it, interestingly enough, he says, well, Robertson didn't mention the Kingdom of the Happy Land, even though I don't think that was really an oversight because it was such a small community. But the reviewer links a link to a newspaper article, a North Carolina newspaper that is drawing on the Sadie Patton pamphlet. This was just in October of 2024. And that link was right there in my New York Times app. And I thought, and by then, of course, I knew because, the book was
Mhm.
in and we had done all of our research. And I thought to myself, these journalists are still not checking that this is a very, very dated source.
Mhm.
And so I was very glad and I'm very proud of the work that we did in the archives to correct this really lie. Because I think it's really important for historical novelists to get it right. Because people come to your book and they say, I learned something new. I didn't know this existed. Da, da, da. And
Yes.
if you've given them erroneous information, what have they really learned? Nothing but
Mhm.
a myth. It's not historical fiction, really. To me, this is me.
I
And
agree.
so what we decided to do, Ronnie and Suzanne and I, we applied for a grant. We put all of the art because we want people when they write an article about the kingdom, or if anybody wants to write another book or poem or play, I'd love to see a play.
Oh gosh, a play.
Um,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So we want them to have the right information. So we applied for a grant from the Dogwood Trust in North Carolina. They gave it to us. We collaborated with a public historian from Asheville, Emily Cadmus, who did a fantastic job and created this web display. And it has everything we found in the archives, everything that actually exists about the Kingdom folk that we found. I'm sure there's more. I hope a historian will come along and complete the work, and we put it out there just for the public, and you can find that link on my website. We just wanted to share that information because I also didn't want my book to become the definitive source either. I want the record to speak.
And because you're so awesome, that was one of my questions.
Oh, which
Because
one?
note that you have it on your website,
Yeah.
because it's always so important that we tell our stories, and the fact checking, and how this was a story that kind of just stood for years, that has some embellishments, and then you come and then create this space where people can learn about the Kingdom of Happy Land, and then also provide avenues for other people to come, a historian, and to share as well. I think it's so important. I mean,
Yes.
what if you had
I've
not done
often felt,
this?
and I've often felt like I work in concert with historians because I read what they write, but I also do my own
Mm-hmm.
footwork and legwork in the archives. Um, when I was in graduate school, I was getting a PhD in literature, but I always loved history. My dissertation was 19th century African American literature, and in order to do that kind of work, you have to be studying history. And I applied. I will not name this professor, very famous historian, to be in his graduate course, and he denied me, saying that I didn't have the appropriate prereqs, which I didn't. But I could have rocked that class. And I never forgot that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to prove him wrong that I should have been in that class. And then I had a postdoc at UCLA. And during my postdoc, I was still doing historical research. And I invited Scott Brown, who's a historian, still a historian at UCLA, a very good historian, and he invited his history faculty to my talk at the end. And the whole time I was apologizing. I was saying, "Well, I'm not a trained historian," because I'd never taken a class in historical archival research, even though I had been doing it the whole time. And I kept saying, I'm not a trained historian, but this is what I found, and I'm not, because I was intimidated by all those men back there with their
Yeah.
canes and their gray hair and stuff. And at the end of it, I was only in my 20s, Jamise. I was young. And when at the end of the presentation, those men came up and filed in front of me and they said, "Stop apologizing. You are a historian." And I was just like, okay. And after that, I had I had the ambition to continue with being doing what I loved, which is looking through the archival
Yeah.
record.
Yes, you are a historian because the last two books have just been out of this world. I just been great, and Happy Land is so good. It was very emotional for me,
Yeah.
but also it was also Black women. It just
Hmm.
made you feel. It made me feel so proud and just so grounded in
Hmm.
the things that we've done and been able to overcome. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about Queen Luella because just her sheer fortitude,
Hmm.
even though, she had some doubts on a couple of things going on in her life, but she just, when it was time for her to step up, she took the reins and just kind of did what needed to be done. And you see that just passed down through our lineages for years.
Yeah, over and over, in the archives, I caught glimpses of Luella's brilliance. Um, she, started a school in the kingdom, and she wanted the kids to be literate. And this isn't in the book, but she began a children's choir, and the children would perform music around the area. She, I think, was the mastermind behind the Happy Land Liniment,
Mm-hmm.
which was that's why I say they were entrepreneurial, which
Yes.
was by all accounts a very successful product. People liked it, people bought it. Um, her name is on that property deed when they buy the land. It's her name is on 100 acres. And you didn't even really see white women's names on deeds of that type of magnitude. There were just all of these glimpses of her being a leader. And, you know, uh, uh, at one point, I think Nikki says, my ancestor was kind of modern and badass. I think she
Mm-hmm.
uses those words. And I thought that too when I was, watching her in the archives, that there was something modern about her. And you find that sometimes in history, right? Like we'll find women in history who are more modern than we might think of
Mm-hmm.
women of their era. And so I'm just in awe of, everything that she managed to accomplish. And I think there's probably, like, this is why I say I hope a historian comes along and continues the work, because there's probably more that we can find out. I lost trace of her in the late 1800s, but I know she was still alive because there was one little glimpse of her in the early 1900s, but I did lose track of her, and I'm not sure whatever happened to her. And I'm hoping that some brilliant, young, ambitious, you know, historian who's trying to make their career
Right.
will make it with Luella and find and and call me one day and
Let you
tell me what
know.
happened to her.
I mean, she made
Hmm.
sacrifices. She was a fierce protector. I mean, she just was. You're right, badass.
Yeah.
She really leapt off the page. And then before I let you go, I got a couple more questions, but let's talk about her. The dynamics between her and the Montgomery brothers
Yes.
in this story. It was a dynamic, but but can you talk a little bit about? I just love how your writing always just makes you, it just makes you think, and it just is it's very engaging. And I thought about how these two brothers, very different, but how they provided certain things to her to kind of make her, I don't want to make her discover, along with her dad, like who she really was.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I get these emails from people who are in the middle of reading the book, and they
Mhm.
write me like in the middle of it, like whether they're strangers or my friends, they'll write me and they'll say, "Oh my God, I can't believe what William just said or did," or I just had to put the book down because of what Robert just said to her. I know we're not doing any
Yes,
spoilers, but it's that, like, part of the storyline that gets people to write me at 2
yes.
a.m.
I almost did
They
because I
get
know.
invested in that.
Yes, because I know at the end of one chapter, Robert says something. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
totally unexpected. I was like, what? So yes, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. I
yeah.
was like,
And that's what people write me. They write me about the end of that chapter and they
yes.
say, "Oh, I just can't believe it. I can't
I mean, we're
believe
just
it."
trucking along. We're having this beautiful, and like, what? Dolan.
Yes, they get very, very
Yes.
frustrated with those brothers. And, I guess the question, going back to like the novelist asking questions, right? So, like, another question I had was, what did Black women desire at this moment? And if they were in a space where they could actually ask for what they wanted or do what they wanted, what would that look like? I really was curious about that. And for all the women there, um, but really also Luella. And I thought if she's truly a free woman, perhaps one aspect of that is like loving who you want to love, how you want to love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just playing around with that. But there's also, some of what I write with that is in the record. Not everything,
Mm-hmm.
but some of it is in the record. And I just kind of imagine my way into what might have been going on. But yeah, that was a question. It's like, what does a free Black woman want in 1883?
Yes. Flowers play a huge role in this book.
Uh-huh. I didn't wear my flower today. I was going to, but
They do.
yeah.
Um, and I want you to expound on that. And even I won't give away the one thing that comes up with the granddaughter, but flowers play a huge role. And I'm finding that as I'm reading different books, especially as they pertain to historical fiction or even Kiese Layman's new book, this City Summer, Country Summer, gardens and things are coming into play, like the earth and how
Yeah.
rich the soil is. And so I want you to just expound a little bit on like how flowers play a role in Happy Land.
Well, a lot of women in Hendersonville garden.
Mm-hmm.
Even Suzanne, had a garden in the back of her house. People who live in those kinds of rural areas tend to grow something, even if it's just some azaleas in the front yard. Um, and I know that my grandmother always had something growing, some kind of patch of something
Mm-hmm.
going on in her back. um, and so I wanted to pay tribute to that Southern country tradition. When I was down there, I visited the farmers market. I visited women who raise flowers for a living. Um, while I was at the farmers market, I bought flowers from the local grower and chatted her up. Um, and I just thought, well, when I talk about like what we lost when we lost the land, one of the things that I believe we lost was our connection to nature. And I wanted to make Mother Rita a gardener.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and um, I wanted that to also be surprising to Nikki and a way also for her to move into her relationship with her grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And I also made both Nikki and her mother are bird
Yes.
watchers, the birders. And that was another one of the things I did during the pandemic is I did a lot of birding because the
Oh,
birds were here in a
yeah.
way that they rarely are. And so I would take walks with my binoculars or I would go to the park a lot. It was a way to keep my sanity during the pandemic. And so I wanted them to, know the names of birds and know the names of flowers. And so one of the themes of the book has to do with sort of like the proper names of
Mm-hmm.
things, which is also parallel to freed people, right? And when they came out of enslavement, like Luella, when we first meet her, sometimes she goes by Lou, sometimes she goes by Luella. And also, they call themselves king and queen. They call
Yeah.
themselves royalty. And so the flowers allowed me to think about several questions, several themes I was thinking about as I wrote the book. So at a lot of my book events, I had the women wear flowers in their hair and I wore floral print throughout my book tour. And I just wanted to kind of, this is a love song to the ancestors, but it's also a love song to, gardening and to gardeners and to the outdoors. And I told everybody at my events, I said, when people would say, what do you want people to get out of this book, I would say I hope they get out of it to just get outdoors
Yeah.
more, take a
That
walk,
was one of my questions.
leave,
What do you want them to get out of the book?
yeah, leave the cell phone at home. And, I shared how I keep a lawn chair in the back of my car. And sometimes, I will just pull over and, I'll be going through Rock Creek Park
Hmm.
and I'll pull over in the parking lot and I'll take my chair out and I'll just sit there,
Yeah.
you know, and allow myself to um, get connected back to the earth. Or like one day, my daughter was feeling very, very stressed. My little one, she's 11. And I said, okay, take your shoes off. And she said, what? And I said, take your shoes off. And she took her shoes off. And I said, take your socks off. And I did the same. And we both just walked in the grass
Yes.
for a minute. And she felt so much better. And I know that's called grounding. We all know that. But like kids don't know that. They just know how they feel in the
Hmm.
moment. And so I'm hopeful that the book will remind us as a people in living through very stressful times to take our shoes off and like just stand in the grass and feel that cool earth beneath your feet.
Yes. That's a great, great message.
Mhm.
Um, Two questions. I want to
Okay.
know what you're reading and then what's next? What's coming next for you?
So
If you can
I'm
share.
reading,
I
what's
said,
that?
if you can share what's next.
Well, I don't even know. I take
Oh,
the
okay.
first year of the book that I'm writing. I take the first year to just think it through and talk it
Hmm.
through. So I'm still, and I don't even know if it's a viable book idea yet. I've been talking about it, and I just came back from LA, and I talked to my girlfriend, who I've talked to about every book. And when I told her this one, she's like, "Ooh, that's hot."
Yeah.
And I said, "Is it
Well, that's
too
a good sign.
hot?" Like she had me scared a little bit, and she's like, "It's hot."
Oh, that's good.
But that was like
That's
not a good
exciting.
hot. That was not a good hot. That was like a controversial hot. And I was just like, ah. But I do feel like right now in my life, and I told you that this is me, a woman of a certain age. I am writing exactly what I
And
want to write now.
and we're here for it. I got to show, I have to, I mean, you're going to tell us what you're reading, but I have to show everyone all of your work because I think that if you don't have this catalog, you need to get it ASAP.
Okay.
Um, so go ahead and tell us what you're reading.
So I just started. She's a UK
Mhm.
author, and it's. I think it's going to be the book of the year out of the UK. It's probably going to be like on all the British awards lists. It's called The Names by Florence Knapp.
Yes, I
Have you
just
heard
got
about this
that.
book?
I just downloaded it.
Beautiful, and it's a debut.
Yes, I
With
just literally got it over the weekend. Yes.
lovely lyrical language. And I was intrigued because I told you I've been thinking about naming and what that means and the power of that. And this book, that's that's the thing. That's what it's talking about. And so I've been reading it, and really I've just been lost in the language of it. That is just so
Okay. I
lovely.
haven't started, so now I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
excited now.
Yes, it's beautiful. I can't believe it. It's like, sometimes like Charmaine Wilkerson, when I first read her book, I was like, where have you
Yes.
been? Like she's like to me a once in a generation talent. Whatever she was doing her whole life, she needs to put down because
Yes.
clearly this woman was born to
That's it.
write. And that's how I feel about Florence Knapp. I'm like, where have you been? Like you can write like unbelievable
Oh, good. I'm
fiction.
so excited. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I got that one. Okay. So I'm going to reach back here and take us through. Okay.
Okay.
Debut. This is 2010, right? Winch.
Mm,
I love this book so much. I
that
mean,
was
it's a hard
mhm.
subject, but there's so many discoveries and things I didn't know. And it's such a good book.
Thank you.
Yes. It is. Any thoughts? Because we're taking you back. This is 2015. I know.
um,
Bomb.
Bomb was probably my most overlooked book. Because it didn't sell as well. It really flew under the radar with a lot
Signed
of
it for me.
media. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
But I feel like technically and lyrically it's my best book.
Okay. So I was going to say that I think people missed the boat on this
Yeah.
book. I
I think like
do.
maybe after I die, if my books are still in print, that will be the one that people kind of discover.
So I'll be
Maybe
talking about
with
this
a
one
new cover,
because the
maybe.
Civil War has ended. And this is, I think people missed the boat on this book because this book was very, very engaged. It was so good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you come back to us in about 7 years,
I
Dolen.
know.
That was too long.
It was too long.
Take my hand.
I was raising kids.
Like, well, okay, that's, well, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll let you
that
slide
one.
for that.
Yeah. And that one I felt like because it had been so long, I had I had to bring it, I kind of feel like that. But I also feel like when I was writing Lynch and Baum, I was still in my stage where I cared about what people thought. And I was like hoping to get reviewed and I was hoping to get an
Hmm.
award and stuff. I wrote Take My Hand and I was like, I'm just gonna write this story.
Yes. And it's so,
I wrote it like I just put my guts on the page
and
there.
the world fell in love with it. And then I think you opened the eyes for so many people, people that didn't know or people that knew and that didn't, talk about it. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, it was a major thing. They came here to Congress.
Yep.
I mean, it was a
Big
major,
deal. It was a big
big
deal.
deal, big deal.
But they're doing
And then
fine. They're still alive and
there,
they're doing fine.
yes, I was going to
Yeah.
ask you that. Yeah. So they're still alive and they're doing fine. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, and we were going to close out with the gorgeous Happy Land. Thank you for all that you do as far as like, bringing stories to light and putting the words on the page for us who love historical fiction. And even for people
Thank
that
you.
don't like it, it's just phenomenal that you take the time to do the research and bring these stories to life for us.
Thank you. I appreciate you and all that you do for Bookstagram. I mean, you're like a pioneer in this world. You're changing the game, and I really appreciate you. I told you my best media is word of mouth, and so what you do for books that's what keeps us going.
Yeah. So I'll be pairing it over on Spines and Bonds because once I finish it, so you'll see a pairing coming up
Okay.
soon. All right.
All
Take care
right.
and thanks for
Thank
joining us.
you.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.